She pointed at my front porch, yelling like a maniac. "You're endangering the community. I'm reporting your wife." Her name was Denise, but everyone in the neighborhood called her Karen, even behind her back. I didn't say a word. I just watched as she dropped a folded paper onto our welcome mat, looked my pregnant wife dead in the eyes, and walked off like she owned the entire street. My wife, Emily, was 7 months along. We'd just moved into this home 2 weeks ago. Quiet corner lot, our first real step towards raising a family. She wanted to plant tulips by the mailbox. Harmless, right? But not to Karen. That notice on the porch, it wasn't from the HOA, it just looked official. Big red letters. Violation. Unsafe conditions. Eviction pending. Emily's hands were shaking when she showed it to me. Her eyes filled with worry. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said softly. I picked up the paper, read every word, and smiled, not because I found it funny, but because I knew what she didn't. See, Denise had no idea who I was. She thought I was just another husband, just another newcomer. But she had no clue what badge I carried. The next morning, Emily drank the tea Karen had left on our doorstep. "Just a neighborly peace offering," the note had said. It smelled sweet, too sweet. 20 minutes later, she collapsed. I dialed 911 before I even lifted her off the floor. The dispatcher asked if I suspected foul play. I paused. "Yes, I think someone tried to hurt my wife." And in that moment, the sheriff in me kicked in. But Karen still had no idea that the man she just crossed wore the uniform of the very county she lived in. At the hospital, doctors rushed Emily into emergency care. Her pulse was low, but the baby was holding on. I stood in that cold white hallway, fists clenched, trying not to break down. I've faced armed suspects, kicked, indoors, even taken bullet. But nothing had ever shaken me like watching my wife fight for breath. A nurse finally came out. "She's stable for now," she said. "There was something unusual in her system. We'll need to run more tests, but it looks like poisoning." Poison. That word hit like a truck. And suddenly, Karen's little peace offering wasn't just some passive-aggressive move. It was an attack. I didn't go home that night. I drove straight to the precinct and pulled up every record we had on Denise Mallory, alias Karen. There wasn't much, but enough to give me a start. 6 HOA complaints filed by her in the last year. 4 of them were against minority or immigrant families. 1 family had even moved out. No charges, though, no real investigations. She'd been careful, but she wasn't careful enough. See, I'd installed a doorbell cam on our front porch the day we moved in. Just routine for me. What I didn't expect was to catch her in full view, placing that teacup and envelope on our doorstep with gloves on, looking around like a thief in the night. I watched the footage 3 times. On the 3rd time, I noticed her drop something small into the cup from a silver pouch in her hand. That was the break I needed. And still, I didn't arrest her. Not yet. Because this had gone too far for a simple takedown. I needed real proof, solid, admissible. So I called in a favor from a friend at the state crime lab. "Get me results on that teacup," I told him. "Fast. Quiet." He paused. "You think this was intentional?" I looked through the glass wall of the hospital, where my wife slept connected to wires and monitors. "I don't think," I said. "I know." But Karen had already made her next move. That same night, while I sat beside Emily's bed, our front door was spray-painted in red. "Get out." I got the call at 3:17 a.m. Dispatch said a neighbor reported vandalism in progress at my address. I was already dressed. My instinct said it wasn't random. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the squad car lights were flashing against my garage door. A young deputy stepped toward me. "Sir, you're going to want to see this." I did. "Get out" was smeared across the door in dripping red. There were eggs on the windows, trash dumped on the porch, and our mailbox had been ripped from the ground. And right there on the lawn was another fake HOA notice, soaked from the sprinklers but still readable. Final warning: violation of community standards. Non-compliance will result in forced removal. I didn't need to guess. Who did it? Karen's signature smugness was all over it, but I stayed calm. Emotion clouds judgment. I turned to the deputy. No press, no neighbors, no arrest yet. "But sir," I said, "not yet." He backed off. I walked inside, careful not to disturb anything. I looked for cameras. I had two set up, one at the door, one facing the street. I pulled the footage. There she was. Again. Hood up, same gloves, same silver pouch in her hand. And this time, she wasn't alone. A tall man stood with her, helping her hold a black trash bag while she dumped its contents on our steps. I zoomed in. Fake police badge on his belt. That's when it hit me. She'd escalated. She wasn't just playing HOA dictator anymore. She was bringing in backup, fake backup. I called my contact at the sheriff's integrity unit. "Check badge NAR 48451, I said. "I think someone's impersonating a cop." He called me back within the hour. "Badge is fake, no such officer. But you'll love this. He's already on a watch list. Goes by Rick Saunders. Known for playing muscle for private eviction groups." I smiled for the first time in days. She wasn't just annoying anymore. She'd committed multiple felonies, and I was about to make sure she paid for every single one. But first, I needed to let her think she'd won. By morning, Karen was already bragging. I sat in my unmarked truck down the street watching her from behind tinted windows. She stood on her porch in her usual pink bathrobe, sipping coffee, laughing with a neighbor like she hadn't just vandalized a pregnant woman's home. "You know," she told the guy next door, "some people just don't belong in this community." I gave them every chance. They refused to follow the rules. The neighbor nodded awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable, but Karen didn't care. She didn't notice the small drone hovering across the street, or the second unmarked car 2 houses down. She didn't know that I'd already submitted the footage and the tampered teacup for emergency analysis, or that Emily had regained consciousness. Back at the hospital, she reached for my hand. Her voice was hoarse, but her eyes were steady. "She tried to kill me, didn't she?" I nodded once. "But we're going to handle this the right way." Emily squeezed my fingers. "Make her regret it." Later that day, I received the lab report. Traces of oleander, an extremely toxic plant, were found in the tea. It wasn't just poisoning. It was premeditated. I called my buddy at the state attorney's office. "You have enough to bring her in?" He paused. "If we move now, it's solid. Intent to cause harm, impersonation of HOA authority, vandalism. And if we can tie her to that fake cop, we will," I said. "Give me 1 hour." I needed her comfortable, still smug, still thinking she was untouchable. So I waited until evening, when porch lights started coming on and families sat down for dinner. That's when I knocked. She opened the door with a smirk already on her face. "Did you finally come to apologize for your wife's behavior?" I didn't answer. I just held up a warrant. "For what?" she scoffed. "Attempted poisoning, criminal mischief, harassment, impersonation of HOA authority, and conspiracy with a known fraud." Her face dropped like a stone. "You can't arrest me. I am the HOA," she shouted. "No," I said, stepping forward. "You're just a bored bully who messed with the wrong family." As I cuffed her, neighbors began peeking out their doors. Some started recording. Someone whispered, "That's the sheriff." And Karen? She was just beginning to realize the whole street was about to see who she really was. The moment she was placed in the back of the cruiser, the neighborhood changed. For months, she'd controlled everything, Mailbox colors, lawn lengths, even which cars were too loud. People were scared to speak up. But now they stood, on their porches, phones out, filming her as she screamed, "This is illegal, you're violating my rights, I am the law here." I leaned down, looked her in the eyes through the open window and said quietly, "Not tonight, Denise." Back at the station, she tried to bluff, demanded a lawyer, claimed she had connections, claimed she was the HOA president. Except she wasn't. A quick call to the real HOA office revealed the truth. She was just a volunteer, who'd been removed 6 months ago for threatening another resident. She'd been forging notices ever since. And Rick Saunders, the fake cop? We tracked him down within 24 hours, found him hiding out at a rundown rental 20 miles out of town. He was arrested without incident. Turns out he'd been paid under the table by Karen multiple times to enforce her fake rules. But the real sting came from the security footage. The cup, the silver pouch, the moment she glanced around before slipping the poison in, played frame by frame in front of a prosecutor. It was airtight. Meanwhile, Emily was recovering. Our baby was okay, but she still couldn't sleep without the lights on. "You think she'll get jail time?" she asked one night. "She's already locked up," I said. "I just want her to stay there long enough to realize who she messed with." The best part? The entire community rallied around us after that. People who'd been silent for too long started coming forward, shared their own stories. One couple had been fined $500 by Karen for unauthorized flower pots. Another said she once called child services on them because their son played outside without a shirt. They were done being afraid. The same HOA that once ignored complaints? Now they were investigating every one of her past actions. And as the case against her grew, so did the crowd waiting to see how it ended. The courtroom was packed, not with reporters or strangers, but with neighbors. People who once whispered behind closed doors now sat shoulder to shoulder, waiting to watch justice land on the woman who'd made their lives miserable. Karen walked in wearing a beige prison jumpsuit, her hair tied back, lips pressed into a thin line like she still thought she was above all this. She didn't look at anyone, especially not at me or Emily. The prosecution laid it out clean and cold, the forged notices, the vandalism, the poisoned tea, the impersonated law enforcement, and then they brought up the footage, frame by frame. Karen's face paled. She stopped scribbling notes. Then came the witnesses. My wife, the elderly couple she harassed for putting up wind chimes, the immigrant family she reported for loitering outside their own home. Each one told a piece of the puzzle. And the jury? They listened, hard. But it wasn't until the prosecutor asked one final question that the entire room went still. "Do you recognize this man?" he said, pointing to me. Karen squinted, confused. "He's just a cop." "No," the prosecutor said, turning to the jury. "That man is Sheriff Mark Keller, county appointed, sworn to protect this community." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Karen's mouth opened, then closed. She looked like she'd just swallowed glass. "He's not just some guy," the prosecutor continued. "He's the law you thought you could fake." That was the moment everything turned. The jury didn't take long. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing came next week. 5 years with a minimum of 3 served. No parole until psychological evaluation. As they led her away, she turned and looked right at me. Not with anger, not with fear, but with disbelief. Like, she still couldn't understand how everything had fallen apart. But I understood. Because when you mess with family, when you hurt a woman carrying life, when you try to play God in a town that's finally had enough, you don't just, you get exposed publicly, completely. And this time Karen's reign was over, for good. After the trial, things didn't just go back to normal, they got better. Neighbors who once kept their heads down started waving, stopping by with casseroles, even helping Emily set up the nursery. It was like the whole street had been holding its breath and finally, someone exhaled. The HOA held an emergency election. This time, people actually showed up, voted, spoke up. The fake rules were burned, literally, at a community bonfire. Someone even brought marshmallows. Emily and I were there, sitting under the stars, hand in hand. She leaned against me and whispered, "I never thought this place would feel like home." "It didn't," I said. "Not until now." Karen's house was put up for sale within weeks. No one dared touch her furniture. A moving company came, cleared everything out, and left the keys with the HOA. No one missed her, not even a little. As for Rick, the fake cop, turns out he was wanted in 2 other counties for similar scams. With Karen's case on his record, he faced even more time than she did. But justice wasn't just about prison bars or verdicts. It was the single mom 3 doors down finally letting her son ride his bike without fear. It was the immigrant, dad who set up a grill on his front lawn for the first time, smiling wide, serving up spicy kebabs to anyone who stopped by. It was community, restored. Emily surprised me one evening, holding a tiny sheriff's onesie she'd bought online. "You think he'll grow up to be like his dad?" I laughed. "I hope not. One sheriff in the house is enough." But deep down, I knew. Our child would grow up knowing what it meant to stand up, to protect what's right. And maybe that's what Karen never understood. This neighborhood wasn't just a collection of houses, it was a family. And you don't poison a family. Not without consequences. The day our son was born, the sky was clear, like even the clouds knew not to mess with us. Emily held him close, eyes glassy with joy. "He's here," she whispered, "and he's safe." I stood there watching. Them, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Because through all the chaos, the fake notices, the vandalism, the poison, the courtroom, this was what it had all been for. Not revenge, not ego. Protection. Protection of a future that deserved better than fear. A few weeks later, I was invited to speak at a county meeting. The topic was neighborhood rights and homeowner harassment. I almost said no, I'm not one for speeches. But Emily nudged me and said, "You have a voice now, use it." So I stood at the podium, looked out at the crowd, some in uniform, some in jeans, some still wearing their name tags from the bakery or the auto shop, real people. And I told them the truth, that sometimes the worst monsters don't wear masks. They wear clipboards. They smile while they hurt you. They hide behind fake rules and loud threats. But the law, the real law, it doesn't care about fake power. It cares about people. I ended with this. I didn't become a sheriff to write tickets or hold titles. I did it to keep families safe. And if someone like Karen shows up in your life, trying to play God on your front lawn, don't bow down. Stand up. Because you never know who's watching, or what kind of strength you've got hidden inside. The room stood and clapped, but it wasn't for me. It was for the message, for the idea that order doesn't mean control. It means justice. Back home that night, Emily rocked our baby to sleep. And as I turned off the porch light, I looked out across the neighborhood. Quiet, peaceful, united. No more fake notices, no more fear. Just the sound of wind through the trees, and the steady breathing of the family I'd fought to protect. I knew right then, this was the land we loved, and no one, not even a Karen, would ever take it from us again.